The Carolina Hurricanes finish up the month of October with a 6-2 win over the New York Islanders on a Halloween Eve. Thankfully for the Canes, it's no tricks, all treats, as they get full-size candy bars and a massive W to wrap up October.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkeyes, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On the Friday show, we get to recap and react to the Hurricanes' 6-2 wins over the New York Islanders to wrap up October before Halloween, as the guys get to enjoy some full-size candy bars and a massive W. Also going to give a slight update on Seth Jarvis as he left the game on Thursday against the Islanders, but also talk about who were the dogs of the game for the Carolina Hurricanes, and then finally kind of give an overall look at the Hurricanes following a 7-3 month to start the season, even with all the injuries. But before we jump all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, for the Canes, in this game, only had one power play, go figure. So they went 0 for 1, but the PK did go 3 for 4, so they were able to manage to keep the Islanders at bay on their power play opportunities. But it was Matthew Schaefer who did get the power play goal, so it is what it is. And then Simon Holmstrom got the other goal for the Islanders. But the Hurricanes, 6 goals in this game. First one coming from Bradley Nadeau, just barely over 2.5 minutes to get his first career NHL goal. You'll love to see it. Absolutely just steals it off a Romanov pass, scores it, and there you go. Hurricanes off to the races early. Even Mike Riley got on the action, getting his first with the Hurricanes shorthanded. Jordan Martinook gets his second of the year. Jackson Blake gets his third. And what's so great about that one is, when this came in the third period, just 151 into the third, Brandon Bussi gets his first NHL point with a secondary assist on the Blake goal. Andrei Svechnikov gets his second goal, and that is back-to-back games with Svech putting up a goal on this game. And then Logan Stakehoven scores his fourth of the year with 11 seconds left in the game to really put it out of reach at that point, which was already out of reach at 5-2. But Nikolai Ehlers picking up his fourth assist. So overall, the Hurricanes, 33-28 in shots, went 38.7% in the face-off, did get out, hit 30-19. But for the fact that even with all that, you saw Bradley Nadeau gets his first NHL goal, which was an amazing shot. What I liked about it, too, is the fact that he stole it, didn't do all these fancy moves, or he didn't have to, do a couple stick handles to get the perfect shot. He just stole it, ripped it. It goes past David Reddish, who was in net for the Islanders, and scores a goal, showing off his NHL elite shooting already. There he has in his career, and the fact that goal scorers score. And that's what he's done his entire career. We've talked about going back to Penticton and the BCHL, going to the NCAA at Maine, obviously what he did last season with the Chicago Wolves, and even this year with the Wolves for a little bit before coming up to the Hurricanes. And there you go. He scores his first goal with the team overall out of the small amount of time he's been able to play since he signed his ELC. This is only his 6th game, and this is the most he's played for the Hurricanes in one season. And he scores. He scores in just in his 6th NHL game, and it was an absolute ripper. And the cool thing, too, is his dad, John, was in attendance for this game. So you love to see it for the fact that he actually got to see, Bradley score. Nadeau gets his first of his career, and it's really amazing to see. And the fact that, when asked about it after the game, and I like the fact that Walt Ruff was able to ask him and get, thoughts on this. It's unbelievable feeling. You dreamed to score a goal in the NHL as a kid, and I was able to do that tonight, which is what you really love to see. And then talking about Brandon Bussi, he comes in, saves 26 to 28, gets his third career win in 4 games in the NHL after having all this time in Boston, never really getting the opportunity. He comes to the Canes via waiver pickup from the Panthers, and he's already got 3 wins in 4 games. And this is what Mike Riley said about Brandon Bussi. He works his butt off, paraphrasing. Even in practice, he competes for every single puck. He is a great kid. It's good to see him rewarded, and obviously it's a great opportunity for him right now, too. I know we're all excited for him, and that's that he's doing great. And that's what you really love to see, too. I like the fact that you got Mike Riley who comes in. He's your 7th defenseman. He's been slotted in for pretty much almost right from the get-go since the Flyers game where you lose Jacob Slavin. And he's been in the lineup. I think he's missed like 1 game really to a healthy scratch. But he's come in and really shown his own, and he was rewarded with a goal on the shorthand, which is crazy. But it's good to see what he says about another guy like Bussi who's just come right in because Kochekov has not played a game this year at all. He hasn't even been a backup. And Bussi's now played in 4 games out of the 10 for the Hurricanes, and he's 3-1. Like, he's been holding his own the entire time. He's at 26 of 28 saves. He gets his first NHL point on a secondary assist after Taylor Hall absolutely undresses Matthew Schaefer. And, of course, it's tough when you're talking about a 18-year-old first overall pick getting, absolutely dangled by Taylor Hall, and then later in the game, Andrei Svechnikov. But, it's good to see that Brandon Bussi got awarded with a point, at least, to get his first of his career. He gets his 3rd win. And honestly, he's really putting himself in a good position to, okay, if Kochekov comes back, Brandon Bussi is waiver eligible. Do you just keep rolling with 3 goalies and just go from there and see what happens? Or because at this point, it's tough to say, hey, let's send Bussi down, because any team will look at this goalie and be like, oh, let's go snag him. Because look what his record is for the Hurricanes right now. If he can do that with them, maybe we have the opportunity. So I think Bussi's really put a lot of pressure on the Hurricanes. It's like, even if Kochekov comes back, what do you really do there? So overall, I think when you look at this game, you got a bunch of firsts. You got Nadeau with his first goal, Bussi with his first NHL point. You go through the month, and we'll talk about this in segment 3, where you have a depleted roster for the most part, and you still finish 7-3-0 with a youth movement. You feel pretty good about yourselves, and the fact too that even with Seth Jarvis unfortunately having to leave the game in the 3rd period due to taking a puck to the high of the foot. And right now, Rod Burnmore said it doesn't look good, but they're still waiting to get some evaluations on Jarvis, which we'll know more about on Friday. But if he says it doesn't look good for Jarvis, then it makes you really wonder, okay, how bad is it? And that really puts the Hurricanes in a tough spot. But, even with Sebastian Aho not getting his point streak snapped, you still got Ehlers, who's getting his 4th assist of the season for the Hurricanes. You're getting Logan Stankoven on the second line scoring. Jackson Blake is scoring. Jordan Martinook is scoring. Andrei Svechnikov scoring in back-to-back games. And you're getting Mike Riley on the shorthand scoring goal, too. So even if your star players aren't scoring in certain times, you're still getting that great Hurricanes depth to still get you wins, still get you goals. And like I said, that's even with a multitude of your NHL regulars out of a lineup that if you think that this team was, full bore, got all the guys where you need to be, who knows where the Hurricanes team is at? I mean, you're looking at it, 8-2, 9-1 record in the regular season in the first 10 games, who knows? But the fact that you still go 7-3, and you're seeing all these young guys stepping up, you're seeing all these depth guys standing up. This is a type of game for the Carolina Hurricanes, regardless if the Islanders are 4-4-1. They were 4-1. They were 4-1-1 in their last 6. It's a team that, they've lost back-to-back games, so they're still a team that's so far doing pretty okay, but you still took care of business. You needed to do what you did, and you end the month on a win, which is what you definitely needed after losing to Dallas and losing to Vegas over the last couple of games. And now you get to, turn the calendar to November and get ready to play the Boston Bruins. But overall for the Hurricanes, an overall great team win. Like I said, you go 3 for 4 in the PK. Unfortunately, you had 1 power play, but it looked good overall. And I said, depending on how the special teams goes, you got to make sure your 5-on-5 is on point. And the Hurricanes 5-on-5 was great when you're up 3-0. It's 3-1. You make it 4-1, and then the Islanders make it 4-2. Then Andrei Svechnikov, blows by Schaefer, and buries it, makes it 5-2, 11 seconds after the Holstrom goal, and then you win 6-2. Like, that's what you definitely need out of a team that needs everyone contributing, pulling on the same rope, and that is what they did. Now, speaking of which, who are kind of like the dogs of the game for the Carolina Hurricanes? Who really stood out in this one? We'll stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in. The app that gives fans the advantage is your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. How big? You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we kind of talked about the game overall, but who were like the dogs of the game for the Carolina Hurricanes? Who really stood out in a game where you really needed everyone to pull on the rope, and they specifically did that? And for me, it's like you really got to look at, just the way you look at Nikishin, Walker, and Riley. Those three guys combined all went plus 9 for the Carolina Hurricanes. Like I said, Mike Riley gets a goal, Alexander Nikishin gets assist, but even Sean Walker plus 3. Riley was a plus 3, Nikishin was a plus 3, Sean Walker was a plus 3. And the fact that, Riley had 2 shots. One was a goal. Nikishin had 1 shot. Walker had 2 shots. Nikishin and Walker both had blocks. I mean, hits-wise, Alexander Nikishin had 4, while Riley and Walker both had 1. Very big moments in the game where Sean Walker even dropped down to one knee and stopped a pass that could have found an Islander in the high slot, and he was there to go down and stop it, and that was a big play for him. Alexander Nikishin standing up for his goalie because Bussi was getting whacked on, with the sticks all night post shots. And, he had to stand up for his guys because obviously the refs weren't going to do anything. We saw that it was very, kind of one-sided. There was a lot of 4-on-4 play. And Nikishin had to stand up for, his teammates, and that's what he said, exactly what he did for Brandon Bussi, kind of getting into it a little bit with one of the Islanders guys, but he was not afraid, to show his might. And like I said, you look at Mike Riley, who really stepped up, shot the puck, picked up his own ring, hit the wraparound, and scored. You love to see. Like I said, Sean Walker is making some very big plays. So you're talking 3 guys on your blue line, all getting plus 3. You definitely love to see it because it means those guys are really stepping up. I mean, you look at the forwards, Stankoven with 2 points, a goal and assists, Andrei Svechnikov with 2 points. I mean, Logan Stankoven was an absolute madman type for the Carolina Hurricanes. I feel like he was just all over the ice, really making plays when he needed to. And his face-off percentage was only 25%, but you look at a guy who still had 20 shifts, 14 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time, finished a plus 3, had 2 shots. You will gladly take that. I mean, Andrei Svechnikov, 15-50 of ice time, 3 shots. He's really been stepping it up over the last few games. It's crazy how good he has been for the Canes since coming back from that road trip. He scored against Vegas. Now he scored against the Islanders. Yeah, he's taken a little bit of the penalties. Like, he didn't have any for the first 8 games. Now he's taken 2. He's taken a good bit in the last 2, but he's the Andrei Svechnikov that he's been wanting to have all season. Now he's finally here and doing his thing. So you love to see it. Jordan Staal, the captain, gets an assist in this game, 52.4% of the faceoffs. He really led the way in that category, 1644 of ice time. We talked about it, Bradley Nadeau. I mean, 1 shot, 1 goal. Hey, there you go, kid. He only played 10 minutes and 2 seconds in 14 shifts. So yeah, not a lot of ice time for him, but that's still pretty dang good, all things considered, for what he did for the Hurricanes is a limited amount of time. And even with Mark Jankowski, 9:32, just very quickly, 10:33, and Jankowski went 50% on the faceoff dot. for the fact that the Hurricanes were kind of, 38.7%, 29 of 75, which saw a lot of ugly hockey in the second period. At least Jankowski at 50% and Jordan Staal at 52.4 kind of led the way in the faceoff category, which is really what you needed the most. Stankoven until only 25. Sebastian Aho surprisingly 33.3%. But even so, too, how about Jordan Martinook? Getting hot as of late as well. Being Johnny on the spot to make it 3-0 when David Rich thought he had the puck. He didn't. It goes behind him, and Martinook was able to get around him and just tap it home. And that's what you really need, and that's what you love to see from the Carolina Hurricanes, is the fact that there's really no stopping. There's no quitting for the Canes. They want to make sure that they're putting themselves in the good opportunity to score every way you can. It doesn't matter if it's pretty. It doesn't matter if it's ugly. They don't ask how. They ask how many. And the Hurricanes put up 6. And this is a game where you really needed that to be a thing for them, especially when you're looking at now, depending on what's going on with Seth Jarvis, if he's out, what's next? And hopefully he's not out for a long time, or hopefully it's just short term. But they're going to have to go and call for someone from Chicago because there's no healthy extras. But you're seeing the depth of the Hurricanes really stepping up big when this team needs. Like I said, you guys heard me just talk about all these guys. Stankoven 2 points, Svechnikov 2 points. You got Nadeau in the fourth line scoring. Ehlers is still getting assists. You got Martinook, Blake, Hall putting up goals and points. You're looking at Mike Riley as a guy on the shorthand scoring a goal. Alexander Nikisha gets another assist. You're looking up and down this roster. You're just getting contributions from all over the board. And I think, you're certain specific dogs of the game, but this is a total, for me, this is a total team win for the Hurricanes. And it kind of sets the tone of, regardless of how many guys are out of the lineup, when you're talking about your NHL regulars, you got Slavin, Gostisbehere, Miller, Carrier, Robinson. You've got all these guys out. Now it depends on what's going on with Seth Jarvis. The Hurricanes are still being a competitive hockey team, and they're still going and getting wins. Like I said, you finished the month 7-3 despite all of these injuries. And now you're looking at a position to where, okay, the Hurricanes could be doing something. And I said, there's a lot of guys that have been really stepping up for the Carolina Hurricanes. And in that aspect of, Seth Jarvis hasn't scored points in the last few games, but he's still doing pretty dang well, all things considered. And you got Sebastian Aho, Nikolai Ehlers, got a point. You're looking at Jackson Blake on a point streak. You're seeing, like I said, you're looking at your depth across the board. People are doing their jobs. The defense is stepping up. The PK is still. If you're Tim Gleason, you got to be loving what your blue line is doing. Being able to hold teams to 2 goals or fewer. You're looking at the PKs going 3 for 4, where it seems like almost every night the Hurricanes are more on the penalty kill than they are on the power play, and you're having to ask a bunch of guys who you would never really consider to be mere main guys on the PK, because you're without Slavin. You're, you would see a Carrier at some point being there too, but now you're having to rely on a bunch of guys that have never really done PK work before to come in there and do those jobs, because you're down so many guys, but they're still doing the job. And I think that's something that's really good too for the Hurricanes, the fact that there is a no quit mentality. It's next man up. It's digging in. It's pulling on the same rope. And that's what you're seeing from this team game in and game out. That's why they're still being competitive regardless of what's going on. And I think that's something that really makes you feel good if you're the team and if you're the fans as well, because you're going to, regardless of what's going on, it's not like another team where you lose 2 or 3 of your guys and now you're kind of middling around. You're losing a bunch of games. You're struggling. The Hurricanes are out without 5 or 6 of their NHL regulars, and they're still getting the job done. Like I said, without a Slavin, a Gostisbehere, a Miller, a Carrier, a Robinson, all of these guys, they're still getting the job done. You are still filling a competitive team. I think that's what separates a great team from a good team, is that no matter how many man games you've lost already, just to start October or whatever month you're in, and you're still winning games, you are putting yourself into a good spot later on down the road to where maybe you are playing 500 hockey. At least you gave yourself 14 points in the month of October to leapfrog you ahead and go from there. And speaking of that, How good has this October been for the Carolina Hurricanes overall? Just talk about a 30,000 feet grand scope of things. Well, stick around. We'll talk about it here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you've missed the start of the game or want to ride on the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets first shot at a better payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push, whether it be your actual NBA team or your fantasy team. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So the Carolina Hurricanes, like I said, 7-3 after playing 10 games in the month of October. They have 2 games in hand on the Pittsburgh Penguins, who lead the division, which so far my season predictions not looking great so far in the Penguins since I have them finished last, but it's only 12 games into the year. There's still another 70 to go for Pittsburgh, who sit at 18 points with an 8-2-2 record, but the Hurricanes are 7-3. They have 14 points. There are 4 back, but like I said, they have games in hand, at least 2 on Pittsburgh. 40 goals for, 30 goals allowed, so they do have a differential of a plus 10. They are 3-1 at home, 1-0 on the shootouts, and like I said, 7-3 in their last 10 because they've only played 10 games. But here's the stat that you really love to see for the Hurricanes. They finished under 500 on the road last year after winning 31 games at home. They are 4-2 on the road this season. So as of right now, the Hurricanes are winning on the road and at home, and that's what you definitely need if you're going to go into the playoffs. You need to have a good road record. And right now, that's where the Hurricanes sit right now, where you're talking about 3-1 at home, 4-2 on the road, and they're also 1-0 in the shootouts. And like I said, you have 2 games in hand on Pittsburgh, and you're only 4 points back. You win those 2 games to match the Pittsburgh total of games played, then boom, you're right there in first place. Your goal differential is also right there. You're putting yourself into a good spot where you're looking at the rest of the division. Like I said, you got Pittsburgh at a plus 13 goal differential. New Jersey's at a plus 9. They play the same amount of games as the Carolina Hurricanes with 10, but they're 8-2 compared to the Hurricanes 7-3. But the Hurricanes would have the tiebreaker right now over the Devils since they beat them first game of the season. You got Philadelphia at 13, Washington and Columbus both at 12 with 6-4 records, but that's kind of what you're looking at right now in terms of just the top 6 are kind of being the most competitive teams right now in the division. If you look at the conference overall, if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, you're still the 5th best team in the Eastern Conference. You're tied with Detroit at 7-3, who have a plus 4 goal differential, 5-1 at home, but they're 2-2 at home. So you have a little bit of a margin of error against the Detroit Red Wings with the same amount of games. You do have a game in hand on Montreal, who has 16 points, who are 8-3, but they're 3-1 at home, 5-2 on the road. So you're seeing where the Hurricanes are right now the 5th best team in the East. They're right now 3rd in the division, but like I said, they have games in hand on the Pittsburgh Penguins, who somehow lead the entire NHL right now, which is crazy. But if you look at the overall landscape of the NHL, the Hurricanes are 9th in the league. Yes, they're tied with Detroit with 14 points, but they haven't faced each other yet, and they have the same amount of points as the Dallas Stars. But the thing is, the Hurricanes have a game in hand on Dallas as well, who's a -2 in goal differential, 3-2-1 at home, 3-1-1 on the road. So, like I said, if you look at the grand scope of things for the Hurricanes, you're looking at a team that even without 5 or 6 of their mainstays, you're having Nikishin as a rookie, Legault, Nystrom. You have Fensori as your 7th defenseman. You got Bradley Nadeau as well. You're talking 5 rookies in your lineup, either playing or at least in the booth, and you have another rookie too in Brandon Bussi, which it's a crazy thing, a 27-year-old rookie, but that's not really on him. That's on Boston. So really, you have 6 guys in your lineup. 5 are at least playing right now in terms of rookies, but you're still winning games with all the veterans that you have. That's even, like I said, without Gossespierre, Miller, Slavin, Robinson, Carrier, you're still third in the division. You're talking fifth in the conference. You're also talking ninth in the NHL as of right now, going into Halloween. You are still putting yourselves in a fantastic spot of, okay, this team is finding ways to get the job done with the man games already lost. And this is just October. Like, hopefully we can start getting these guys back in November and all that and trying to see that where that shift is for the Carolina Hurricanes. But overall, you're still in a fantastic spot, regardless of all the injuries and stuff, because now you are showing that don't ever count this team out because they're able to get the job done when needed most. So if you're Carolina, it's just how can you keep weathering the storm? How can you keep still leaning on these guys? And a lot of credit to Cam Abbott and his staff in Chicago, because without them playing the same system that Carolina does, how does a Nystrom or a Legault or Nadeau, all of these guys can come in and still perform and just seem like it's almost like a seamless transition. You're putting yourself in a good spot, or being able to go out there and not have to be like, okay, how is this guy going to do? Should we be worried? But they're still going out and doing the job, and that's exactly what they've done. So you have to feel pretty good about yourselves with the fact that the development in the American hockey and in the AHL is translating to the National League, where you're being able to go and get points, being a competitive hockey team. The fact you still got your veteran core of, Martinook, Stahl, and Aho leading the way with Slavin out. But you have all these other guys that are stepping up, Jarvis, Sean Walker, Mike Riley has stepped up as a veteran as well. You're still getting, Jalen Chatfield. You still have great goaltending in Frederick Anderson. I mean, he's helping Brandon Bussi, along the way. And the fact that those two have been playing very well together. And the fact that Bussi is 3-1 on the season, which is great. And, Freddie's still rock solid as well, too. And it's like I said, it's only 10 games, but it's a good sign if you're still able to do what you can as a competitive hockey team with all the unfortunate, voodoo or bad luck or just the injury bug that's been kind of plaguing this team even before the season started, where you are kind of worried about Slavin a little bit. You lose Kochetkov right from the jump. He's not even ready for opening night. Now you're down to your third goalie, but luckily the third goalie is putting himself into an argument of, okay, does he stick around a little bit longer, even if Kochetkov stays? So that's kind of the big question. But overall, you have to feel good if you're a Hurricanes fan. You have to feel pretty decent, too, if you're the front office, because in just the franchise overall, because you're still third in the division, fifth in the conference, ninth in the NHL, and that's with man games lost already 10 games into the season. So now it's like, okay, once guys start getting back, when does the real full-blown, here's the full force of the Hurricanes coming at you? Because if they're doing it with the guys they have now, what does that translate to when the full roster is back and everyone's healthy? That's the big question. So overall, if you're the Canes, like I said, you have to think, okay, November, hopefully the voodoo stays back in October. Now we start getting guys back, but now you know that regardless of where you're at roster-wise, everyone's going to pull in the same direction, and you're still going to be a competitive hockey team that's still going to get wins. Only time will tell, but as of right now, there has to be some good optimism for the Hurricanes with how October went, going 7-3-0 and putting yourself in a very good spot to stick within the Metro Division and the Eastern Conference and the NHL overall. So we'll see how November goes, but if hopefully winning wise is just as good or better than October, and hopefully we are rid of the injuries, because right now it's getting crazy to think about who's out of the lineup and worried about who's going to be out and who you're going to bring in, all that stuff. Well, hopefully it kind of starts calming down as we get into and through November. But until then, guys, before we do all that in November, this is the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you guys listen to your podcast. If you're going to keep up with me, I'm at One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, where if you click the link tree in my bio, you can find all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. I've been putting out a lot of stuff since the start of the season. Make sure to go check all of that out. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked on Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked on Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Friday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy your weekend and have fun on Halloween night. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.